It's all about developing horizontal relationships and creating an innovation community. The buildings will come if you create the community.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, disruptors, and creators who are making things happen today. My name is Michael T. Johnson, and I'm here with my co-host Tyler Kelly, and we are at Venture Cafe St. Louis tonight. We are very, very excited today because we have Dennis Lauer with us. He's actually the CEO of Cortex. So one thing to note, Venture Cafe is the largest gathering of entrepreneurs anywhere on a Thursday night. So thank you for being here with us, Dennis.
I want to change that. Anywhere in the world, any day of the week.
There you go.
So Venture Cafe is every Thursday night here, 49 Thursdays in a year. And every week we have around 500 people, entrepreneurs of all types that are dropping by, breakout educational sessions. And we can't find another place in the United States or around the world consistently on a weekly basis where that number of people gather to talk about innovation. So,
and I really think it's a huge movement that has started, and we're grateful.
In many respects, been amplified right here in St. Louis.
Yeah, it's been interesting because I'm a St. Louis transplant. This is my third innovation district that I've worked on developing. The previous one was in Louisiana, and before that in New Jersey. Of the three, this is the one that has the most potential, the legs, and it's all because it's a convergence of a whole variety of factors that and culture here in the Midwest, and people working together. And it's I'm kind of the orchestrator. That's all. It's not because of me, but I'm able to connect people, connect the dots, create those creative collisions, get people at the table that wouldn't normally be at the table, get people to think about things bigger than they'd imagined before. So I kind of consider myself a chief mythologizer for the innovation movement.
And for those people that don't know, let me just tell everyone a little bit about Dennis. You've been involved in technology-based economic development since '95, with a focus on the planning and development of university-sponsored urban innovation districts. You mentioned
Right.
the previous two. Currently president CEO of Cortex Innovation Community here in St. Louis. And for those that don't know, this is a 200-acre urban innovation district, which was founded in 2002 by WashU, BJC Healthcare, UMSL, SLU, and the Missouri Botanical Garden.
Mm-hmm.
And it really has become the region's epicenter of innovation and entrepreneurship, and you've been at the helm. So,
Well, I've only been at the helm for 8 years, and as you said, it started in 2002, and up to 2010, the board of directors of those 5 founders, they ran the organization themselves, but it wasn't getting a lot of traction, and that's when they decided they should look for a professional who's kind of done this before. So when I came in, we did a lot of pivoting, but we built on the foundation that had been provided. And the great foundation was those 5 institutional community sponsors put up about $30 million of seed money. They got development rights over the 200 acres. But the way they were approaching it was as a business park, believing that if you just build buildings, they will come. And that's not what innovation communities are about. Okay, business parks are about vertical relationships in buildings, mid-rises and high-rises. People don't necessarily come out and reach out their hand and develop those relationships and develop that community outside of their business, outside of their company. So we changed the name. That was one of the first things we did, to the Cortex Innovation Community from just being Cortex, to emphasize that it's all about developing horizontal relationships and creating an innovation community. The buildings will come if you create the community of innovators. That's what drives the demand to build the buildings in which the innovators carry out their creative practice every day. So that very important pivotal distinction, letting the buildings be the the antecedent, not the precedent, focusing on building that community first and building the programs that bring people together, like a venture cafe. Every day we have different programming going on within the district. We have something that feeds people, that feeds innovators every day, and we're just not the only ones that put these things on. As a matter of fact, we only put a few of these events on. Most of the events are put on by our ecosystem partners that either reside in the district or that come into the district to put programming on. It's serious programming sometimes, and it's fun programming sometimes. Like lawn games, we just put in a bocce court. We have yoga on the green. We have food trucks. We have chess tournaments. But we also do seminars on intellectual property, on community engagement issues that are hot topics here in St. Louis, on marketing and social media, and on search engine optimization. All those different kinds of programs we put on and we offer to our innovative community. That's what makes us magnetic. That's why over 350 companies have come to reside here right now, and we're at full build out. We'll be over 600 companies.
So I've heard you talk about the idea of community as opposed to a business partner, and like you're talking about very specific things, and some of these seem really, really simple, but it seems like you really have a focus on doing things that build community. Like, what are some practical ways that you've done that around here?
So if you think about what constitutes a community, that worn-out mantra of live, work, play, and we've added learn because 3 of our 5 sponsors are universities. So live, work, play, learn, all of those ingredients are necessary in a community of any type in order to make it robust. And so when you think about building an innovation community, you have to think about each of those 4 buckets. How do you create learning activities that go continuously are feeding people? How do you create activities that are fun activities where people can play, where they can eat, where they can enjoy each other? Sort of like the third place, but having it within the district itself. Obviously, creative workspaces are very, very important. Not the same old of traditional office buildings, but collaborative, glass-filled, light-filled places where people can see other people working and feed off that energy, where it's easy to come and easy to go, and then the whole aspect of creating those opportunities simultaneously so that people can transition from one to another. So we work with a lot of our partners in creating opportunities in each of those 4 buckets. And we invest in each of those 4 buckets. So we invest, for example, in the Cambridge Innovation Center. We brought them here, their first expansion outside of Kendall Square in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And we put some money into outfitting their initial locations here. And now they just opened their 3rd location. They're at 160,000 square feet and 300 plus companies. But it's the creative work environment that they bring to the table. Venture Cafe brings a wonderful, playful interaction of both learning, of socializing, of networking. We have accelerators that are funding companies. We have shared laboratories for people. Creating a sense of place was a very intentional thing that we did when I came in 2010. You have to create a there. And that was part of the reason why Cortex kind of got stalled. It wasn't a place that people felt, hey, it's cool to be there. So we had to build all new streetscapes. We had to put in a $12 million Cortex Commons, place that we hold all sorts of events. I mentioned a few of them earlier. We have outside classes on the grass. Some are recreational, some are educational. We have food trucks. We have fitness fairs, chess tournaments. Next week, as a matter of fact, Square, which is one of our largest tech companies in the district, is holding a pop-up emporium, and they'll have about 30 to 40 of their Square vendors here, and they'll have music, they'll have food trucks, they'll have raffles and giveaways, and there'll be hundreds of people that come out from the buildings and come in from the community for that event that'll last for 5 hours that day. So creating those kinds of opportunities is what creates those collision points where people can bump into each other, can share what they're doing. They might share a problem that they have in technology with somebody that is in a totally different field, but that person might come up with a solution that nobody thought about. So it's really trying to create diversity in the community, diverse offerings, a sense of place. Restaurants, we're now opening up our second restaurant in December. It's under construction. We have a third one that we just broke ground on that'll come on in 2019. So we've got restaurants. We have a hotel that's now under construction. It'll open in 2019. In July, we have a new train station that'll open up, a light rail train station right in the heart of the district. All of these components add to that sense of place, add to an environment that makes you want to get up in the morning and come to work. Because you know, whenever you come into Cortex, you know that that day is going to be different than the previous days because you're going to bump into somebody or you're going to do something that you didn't do before. So one size does not fit all, and what we try to do is to create as much diversity in the environment and let people then go at it. Let them do what they do, which is create and innovate.
So take me back to when you first came here it's back in 2010, correct? Mm-hmm. What was it that you saw here as part of coming here? So obviously there was some kind of vision or some kind of opportunity. What was happening that made you specifically want to come here and do what you're doing now?
Yeah. So I came here in December of 2009. They started their search in 2009 for an executive. I had been approached, but I said, I'm fine in Louisiana. Having a lot of fun, a lot of good food, a lot of good mud bugs to eat, and I'm perfectly fine here. And so then they came back a few months later and said, well, okay, we know you don't want a job, but would you come and talk to us about, give us some pointers about how we can move our district ahead? So I said, sure. I studied the materials. I came up. I spent a day with them and with the board. I went over what my thoughts were of how they needed to move the district ahead, how they had to reposition the district, how they had to focus on building an innovation community, not buildings. Before I went back to the hotel that night, when I got to the hotel, it happened to be a storm that day, not only in Louisiana, but a snowstorm here in St. Louis. So I had to spend the night. I got back and checked in, and there was a call from their headhunter from Boston. And they said, I don't know what you said to them, but they want to offer you a job. They want you and your wife to come back and talk to them. And I said, well, that's not what I came here for. Let me think about it. We're going away for the holiday, so we're not coming back for a while. So got some distance, talked to my wife. We decided that we would take a look at the opportunity. And we came up in January, February of 2010 and started looking more at the community, more at what this region had to offer. When I did that, I recognized that this was a place that was waiting to happen. This was a place that was pregnant with opportunity. This was a place that had so many assets, but the challenge was that they weren't connecting them, okay? When I looked at it, I saw all of these amazing things, but they were all in silos, okay? Sort of like that business park model. But the zoo was doing its thing, the symphony was doing its thing, the sports folks were doing their things, everybody, the universities were doing their thing, but none of them were working together to really elevate the game. So, what is life really all about? But it's about collaboration and making 2 + 2 not equal 4, but some multiple of that. But that only happens when people come to the table with the right motivation, and they contribute what they have, and they think together about how do we leverage what we have. So what I recognize is that there's a lot of unlevered potential. And I just thought it was waiting to happen. And because of my 2 previous engagements, I knew things that worked, I knew things that didn't work, and my belief was that this was just an opportunity waiting to be basically orchestrated. So, since 2010, we've gone from 35 companies to about 360 companies, on our way to about 600 companies, not because of me, but because I basically laid a vision out to them of what could be if they came to the table and brought those assets to the table. So that's what I saw. I saw, here in St. Louis, the Fine Arts Museum, the zoo, all these things are free. All the history museums and things like that. In other cities, you pay 30, 40, 50, 60 bucks, for one entry. That to me showed me that this community had a civic sense about it, a connected sense, but they needed to move beyond that and needed to work together more. So those were the things that I saw, and when I decided to come, my family and I decided to come, have not been disappointed. When people say to me, well, are you surprised at what's happened since you came? And I have to honestly say, no, I'm not surprised. It was all waiting to happen. People just had to work together, and there was just a vision that had to be created for people to live into. So that's why I was, joking before about, one of my jobs, the primary job is mythologizing people, getting people to believe in something that to them might seem, well, is that real or is that not real? Well, if you believe it, you can make it real. And we have a lot of believers, and it's really coming to fruition.
And since then, Brookings Institute cited this community as one of the best in the nation, top 7. And the vision is really taking shape. I mean, it's off to the races. So what now? Like, what's the future look like outside of the 3rd building for CIC and filling the 600 companies? Like, what's your vision for the next 2 years?
So, 2, 5, 10. Yeah. So, my next 2 years, I might be lying on a beach somewhere. So, that question gets asked a lot. Some people out of fear, some out of excitement. Those out of fear saying, how do you sustain it? Like, oh my God, we got a great thing going. How do we sustain it? My response to them is you can't contain it. You can't capture lightning in the bottle. My founders and my partners have to be as entrepreneurial as we are asking our companies to be. Entrepreneurs have to take risks. Not everything you risk on actually comes to fruition. So it's very important to sustain this energy and grow the energy, that we listen, and this is what I tell my partners, my founders, that we have to constantly listen to our clients. We have to listen to where they're taking us. We have to listen to what their ideas are. We have to then shape and reshape our business plan to meet their needs. It's not about Cortex, it's about these companies. Cortex is a platform. We're sort of the wizard standing behind a curtain. I like to think that what we're doing is innovation engineering. We listen to what people need, and then we try to engineer a solution in an innovative way, in the same way that those innovation companies develop their products. So in the near term, we have to constantly be innovating, changing, listening to what not only the 200 acres and the companies here are saying to us, but what the region is saying to us. And we have to try to respond to that. So that's one response. Another thing I tell people is, where's this, what do I think is the future here? I believe that within about 10 years, I could stand on top of the arch and I could look west and possibly east, but certainly west, 8, 10, 12 miles out. And I could see that entire area filled with technology-related companies. not unlike what you see when you leave San Jose and drive north to San Francisco through the Silicon Valley. This is not another Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is unique. Cortex is unique. Every innovation district is unique. There are no such things as Me Too innovation districts. They will only be successful if they understand their assets and leverage their assets. So we've got all those assets here. We've got a dozen Fortune 500 companies that are continuing to be more innovative and spin out technologies. We've got an incredibly growing innovation community of startups. We have great additional venture capital that's come into the region in the last several years. Great research coming out of the universities. We have all the elements to continue to feed the fire and feed the vision. So from my perspective, in the next decade, I think it's very achievable that this truly becomes a global hub. We are not yet a hub, but we are approaching hub status, and we truly are becoming what is recognized globally as an innovation center of excellence. And thanks to what Brookings has done for us, I know where the Brookings people are traveling anytime in the world, because I get phone calls from those cities that are calling me saying, hey, we understand that you are one of those global hotspots. Can we come and visit? So we say sure. We always try to get them to come on a Thursday for Venture Cafe.
So what are some of here in St. Louis, we're all, I think, aware of the challenges that the region presents.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to become that hub,
Right.
what do we need to address as a region?
Yeah. So there are lots of challenges that we have. One right now is continuing to grow the funding base. We've been successful in garnering a significant amount of venture capital and new venture capital assets over the last decade coming here, new angels stepping up. We, however, are exponentially adding to our startup community. Okay, so we have to continue to develop and expand the financial resources to support the companies. Right now, one of the areas that a lot of us are focusing on is developing more Series A and Series B venture funding. We have a lot of good grant startup funding. We have a lot of seed, pre-seed and seed funding. But when we get to that place of now really doing an institutional round, the first and second institutional rounds, we're light. So we need to pad that. We need to bring more Series A, Series B money. We have actually a fair amount of good follow-on money, Series C, D, and E, and beyond. So we have that financing challenge we have to address. We have to address affordable lab and office space issues. So here in Cortex, for us in particular, unfortunately, we're gentrifying the neighborhood, all right, our tech neighborhood. We're building a lot of new Class A space. Our accelerators and in our CIC space, which is affordable space to grow in when you're small, but then you have to move out. And if you have to step right up to Class A space, that's a huge leap. So we need to create affordable step-up space that allows our companies to graduate into a next step up, a little bit higher, until they get full market traction and penetration in the market, and then they can go to Class A space. So that is a huge issue. If we can't provide that, and we're working on that, we have a building right now that we're developing as an affordable space. But if we can't develop that, what happens is that our companies, once they start growing, have to move out of the district. And a big part of our success is density. We've got people crammed in 200 acres, and we're continuing to add that density because that's what our entrepreneurs want. So if we start losing those companies when they get traction, then what happens is it dissipates our energy. So affordable space, money, and the third thing is a focus on growing diversity within, not only addressing the diversity issues, and particularly the equity issues in being able to access the innovation community. So we have to make this a more porous community for all races and all ethnicities to be able to participate in the opportunities that we are providing here. Simply creating the opportunity, which is what we have done, does not equate to access. Access for different communities requires additional support systems in order to get those startup companies who have not been mainstream before and who are not part of the majority community, to get them to a place where they can stand on their own. So this is something not only for Cortex, but it's for the region. And around the region, we are really beginning to focus on this issue, because this country has a real issue now, and that is full employment. And at least full employment in the majority population. It's not full employment in the minority and ethnic populations. And so we need to tap that, grow that, hone it, and bring it into the workforce to support our continued growth. So those three challenges is what we need here in the St. Louis region to continue to feed the beast.
Yep. Shift gears a little bit and talk about Innovation Hall just opened up. So can you tell us a little about it?
Sure. So part of our secret sauce has been a decision that we took in 2012 to create multiple innovation centers all within a block of each other. Again, we did focus groups when I came in 2010, asked our entrepreneurs throughout the region, what do you need? What do you want? They all said density. So part of our strategy, we changed our business plan, and part of our strategy was first to focus on not recruiting in the large established companies, because everybody wants those, but focus on growing our innovation community. We focused on that by putting in place right now 9 different innovation centers and accelerators, all with their own programming, all with their own clients, and they cross-pollinate. So what that's allowed us to do is to grow this, rapid innovation community from 35 to 350 in about 8 years. Well, and we're now adding 3 more innovation centers to those 9. One of those is Innovation Hall. Innovation Hall is, and it's not yet open, but it will be open. Actually, the official opening date for it is November 9th. So that's the grand opening for Innovation Hall. And it will be a grand opening for the 4220 building that we just started opening and are starting to tenant. But we're going to do a late fall, early winter grand opening for that. And Innovation Hall is 15,000 square feet of meeting space, basically. One of the things that we learned as we started growing is that we just can't contain within the district. We don't have the large enough spaces for all the meetings that people want to hold. Not only companies within the district, but people that want to come in from outside the district to hold their meetings here in the district so that they can experience some of this elan vital that we have, this energy, this excitement, this quick to succeed, quick to fail mentality. This is not a staid operation here. There's always energy all the time, and people like to hold meetings in the district, even if they don't tenant the district. They like to hold retreats in the district, planning meetings in the district, innovation meetings of large corporations want to come in and hold them here so they can cross-pollinate with the startups. We didn't have that space. So what Innovation Hall is going to do for us is it's going to allow us to have meetings for one-on-ones, 2 people, 4 people, 12 people, 20 people, 40 people, 100 people, 200 people, 300 people. So we can provide that space in all those different increments when we open up. So that will be an active, every day, weekend, 7-day-a-week meeting space that the general public will be able to book and come into, as well as our companies within the district if they need to have larger meetings than we have space for. So part of that is our third restaurant, which is going to be a signature restaurant run by one of our famous national chocolatiers, Bissinger's Chocolate. artisan chocolate, I guess you call it. And they are now in the catering business as well. And they now have begun to move into the restaurant business. And so we are opening up their first full-service restaurant called the Chocolate Pig. And there are going to be a lot of variations and uses of chocolate, and probably some mole sauce in there too. But they're an integral part of Innovation Hall because they will provide the catering for the meetings. They will also be a publicly facing restaurant. And so people can come into Innovation Hall. They can hold business meetings in the restaurant. They can walk back into the civic lounge, or they can sit down and hold one-on-one meetings, open up their computer, do a little co-working, go have meetings in these different spaces as they need to. So that's going to create a whole new level of energy. That's going to be the next bolus of energy for the district. Now, we're not going to move Venture Cafe, our Thursday gathering. We're not going to move that Thursday gathering over there. That's going to stay in this building, but Venture Cafe is managing Innovation Hall for me. So we're pretty excited about it.
So the Innovation Hall is just a space within the new building that's over there.
That's right.
And what other kind of things are happening?
Yeah, let me tell you about it. So we kind of have fallen into this trap of naming our buildings after their street address.
Yeah.
So that's the 4220 building. So now we have, we have a 4240 building, a 4220 building, a 4360 building. So we're kind of stuck in this rut. But so this one is the 4220 building is about a 200,000 square foot building, and it's a tech building. And so in addition to our 15,000 square feet, we're bringing another amenity into the district, which our clients have asked us for, which is a wellness and fitness center. And that's 15,000 square feet. So it's got some substantial size to it. It's being run by our healthcare partner, BJC Healthcare. And it'll be right adjacent to the Innovation Hall as well. So the whole first floor of this 5-story building is filled with amenities, not only for the building, but for the district as well. Then we also have, anchoring this building on the top floor is Microsoft. And Microsoft is opening up their first Midwest headquarters. And they've selected Cortex in St. Louis to do that. So they're moving 300 people into the top floor. We also have another 41,000 square feet of CIC, Cambridge Innovation Center space, because our other 2 locations for CIC have waiting lists, as you guys know. So they just opened that. They're the first client actually to open in that space. And they're going to populate that with probably another 50 to 70 companies, probably by Christmas that'll be full. So the good news and the bad news is that on April 23rd, we got a certificate of occupancy from the building department for that 200,000 square foot building. The bad news is it's almost 90% leased at this point. And so now we're in the process of planning our next building, which is going to be about a 250 to 300,000 square foot building. So
2020.
We'll probably announce that later this year.
Okay.
It will go into development sometime in 2019. But we also have yet not a formally announced 100,000 square foot building, which is being developed by another developer here in Cortex. And they're very close. We're in the process of approving their plans for that, so there'll be an announcement on that very soon as well. So there's a lot of activity.
Lots of activity.
Yeah. You can't build it fast enough for people here.
Yep.
And lots of energy.
Lots of energy. That's right.
Dennis, how can people get in touch with Vortex or with yourself?
Right. So go on our website. All of our contact information is there. It's cortexstl.com, STL for St. Louis, cortexstl.com. That'll bring you to our website. All of our contact information is there. How to access all of these innovation centers is there as well that we've talked about. We have a weekly newsletter called the Cortex Connections that comes out every Thursday that announces what's happening in the district next week. You can follow us that way. We have Facebook pages that are associated with that as well. So lots of ways to connect to us and find out what's going on. And of course, you can always call us and you can always visit us.
Wonderful. Dennis, thank you for being on
Yeah,
the
it's
show.
my pleasure. You
My
bet.
pleasure as well.
Okay. Thanks. Be well.
For more episodes, visit innovationcity.co. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. If you're in St. Louis, visit us on a Thursday night. You can find details at vincafstl.org. You can also connect with us on social at We Are Slam or at Venture Cafe STL.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win.